It all happened in 2021 when Samsung released the best mid-range smartphone of the year, the Galaxy A52. The A52 delivered an outstanding performance and a high-quality camera for what it was worth, and in fact, made my list of the most recommended smartphones of the year. Heck, I even had to test the A52 once more for a few days before testing the A53, so I could wrap my head around this successor. Fast forward to 2022, we have the all-new Samsung Galaxy A53 with Samsung's own chip and with Sammy trying to replicate the success from last year with this device. In this story, this is the truth, betrayal and death of the Samsung Galaxy A53. And so without taking much of your time, yo guys, let's get started. Before we begin, I got my 6 gigs of RAM unit for 220,000 naira, about $450, and that's what I've been using for this review. Now here's the truth. No doubt the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G is a very capable smartphone that features a matte plastic back and glossy plastic side, and it is quite difficult to differentiate the smartphone from the A52 until you take a close look at the smartphones. You still retain the volume and power buttons to the right side, while there is no button on the left side, the SIM card and microSD card slot, which is hybrid, a microphone, a USB-C connector or port, and a speaker grill are located at the bottom side, and the top of the smartphone has a secondary mic. As far as the build and design here, you know you get an IP67 water resistance rating and a Gorilla Glass 5 guard for the screen. Speaking of which is an Infinity O punch-hole design Super AMOLED display with 120Hz refresh rate, which makes animations appear exceptionally smooth, 2400 by 1080p resolution and 800 nits of maximum brightness. Pretty bright if you ask me, and these are minor changes from the A52. I mean, if it ain't broke, you don't fix it. The viewing angles are great and the colors look fantastic in both the vivid and natural modes, which is not always the case with the other mid-range devices around this price point. Remember, I didn't mention anything about the fingerprint scanner when talking about the ports on the smartphone, and that's because you get the optical fingerprint reader integrated into the screen of the Galaxy A53. However, it is not Samsung's well-known ultrasonic sensor, hence this is not the fastest or most accurate in-display scanner we've come to see from Samsung's flagship devices. Compared to the A52, which has the Qualcomm Snapdragon processor, the Galaxy A53 here is powered by Samsung's own Exynos 1280 SoC, which is manufactured on a 5nm technology. One UI 4.1 on top of Android 12, and there's this material use style dynamic theming offered by Samsung on this device, giving the interface a very modern feel. When it comes to the software updates, Samsung guarantees 4 years of significant software updates, so there is no need to worry about software here as you are covered. Just like a 5000 mAh battery, which takes about 50 minutes to charge this from 0 to 100 using a supported Samsung 25-watt charger. Meanwhile, I have my reservations on the charging system here, which I'll cover in the betrayal section of this review. The 1280 processor does a great job in terms of the performance. Most standard phone tasks run quickly, for instance, navigating the UI, launching and switching applications, and playing games are all swift enough. While playing demanding games like Genshin Impact, there may be occasional hitches here and there. However, other functions like online surfing, watching movies, navigating the UI would go without a hitch. Did I mention 6 gigs of RAM and 128 gigs of internal storage, which is expandable to a terabyte using the micro SD card slot on the Samsung Galaxy A53. Now these cameras. A 64 megapixel f1.8 with optical image stabilization main lens, a 12 megapixel ultra wide, 5 megapixel depth sensor and a 5 megapixel macro lens are what you get here. The front-facing camera retains the same as the last year's version, which is a 32 megapixel sensor with aperture 2.2. Now on paper, they're about the same specs as the Samsung Galaxy A52 with the same camera system, but the Exynos 1280 processor is a significant improvement that makes the camera system on the smartphone, the A53, a bit better than its predecessor. While the Galaxy A53 lacks a telephoto camera, the Exynos 1280 allows what Samsung calls AI zoom. Portrait mode on both the front and the rear cameras have been improved due to the better AI with this chipset here and the performance. The inclusion of portrait illumination while in the portrait mode is another feasible feature because of the new chipset on here. More impressive than the AI zoom and the enhanced portrait mode is the increased dynamic range while taking stills and videos with this camera. Samsung has rebalanced the color range, resulting in more vibrant and saturated colors with the smartphone. There is also an improvement in detail. The new chipset is assisting with this while shooting with the A53's ultra-wide camera. The A53's photos are adequate for mid-range phones. Shots from the primary, ultra-wide and selfie cameras are clear, contrasty, and colorful in excellent lighting conditions. Noise is an issue in low light, by the way, and you never capture a clean shot of moving objects at night. Like the macro cameras on other low-cost smartphones, the macro camera on here is mostly ineffective. The dual speakers on the A53 are shockingly powerful and packed for a phone of this price. They are not a replacement for Bluetooth speaker, but they are okay for casual gaming and YouTube streaming. Excellent sound staging and clarity, the treble and mids sound rich and crisp, making the A53 5G a great phone for watching videos and listening to podcasts. On the other hand, the bass is scarcely audible, albeit it is not muffled even at maximum volume, so that's something you get here. Where do I even begin? The A53 is packaged in a small cardboard box that holds the phone itself, followed by an even smaller cardboard box that contains the paperwork, the SIM ejector, and a USB-C cable. So there's no earpiece, you do not get a charger, and no TPU case for the smartphone. You must have to provide your own power charger, and that brings me to a second problem. This smartphone seems to be selective of what charger activates the fast charging feature with this device. It seems you have to get a Samsung 25-watt charger or power brick to even get that working here. Shout out to my homie Valor who tested that out. Chargers from other brands, even though might have these high ratings, do not seem to activate the fast charging feature or charge this in 50 minutes, and that's worrying. Speaking of things that were removed from the smartphone, the headphone audio port has been removed disappointingly. Was it to fit in a larger battery, which I didn't notice enough difference compared to the A52, or was it to improve upon the IP rating? See, I wouldn't be able to tell you, but it hurts. Performance undoubtedly is great, but when it comes to the GPU performance on this device, you seem to notice that this doesn't do the best job. On paper, it should, and I think updates in the future would unlock those aspects, but I thought you should know that, for instance, PUBG plays at HD graphics and high frame rate, which is less than what we got from the A52 as the time of recording this video. While I talked about the speakers being great, 80 to 90% seems to be the sweet spot while using this smartphone, but at max volume, you clearly begin to hear these tiny distortions. If you already got the A52 from last year, I wouldn't easily recommend getting the Samsung Galaxy A53. There are hardly enough upgrades to call this new version an upgrade. Yes, there's better battery capacity, better refresh rate, 5G and improved camera quality, but essentially, the A53 is too similar to the A52 that it wouldn't make sense to ask you to drop your A52 right now for this device. And that's not the only problem of death here. Suppose you don't already have the predecessor and you are looking for a budget phone with all these goodies. This is hard. Well, you can go get the smartphone, the A53 right now if you have the money to, but you might even want to firstly consider the Samsung Galaxy A33, which is about $80 cheaper before pulling the plug. And that's if you want this more into the future software updates. They are really similar, you should check it out. Koida Day.